Hey everyone, out here with Seth, Gibson. We're just gonna stop. We've been talking for an hour and a half, so we're just gonna jump right into where we're talking about always being a white belt. If you want to.
Yeah, it's funny actually. I think like when I posted this on Instagram and said, "Hey, we're gonna talk," I think that was the one question people were like, talk about jiu-jitsu, and I was like, oh, all right,
perfect,
sure.
Yeah.
Like, and it's cool because I know because when you started in January, and
yes, sir.
Yeah. How's that? I mean, how's that kind of been working? Because I know you had kind of some specific goals for doing it, like both from like a high level, and how's that been working out for you?
It's been amazing. Just competing. That's the big thing for me.
Yeah.
Being in a spot where you're either the hammer or the nail, and you still gotta fight. You know, you gotta have that dog inside of you and fight all the way through. Whether it's at this point, I'm just lucky to go enough against an ex-MMA fighter.
Oh, nice.
And I got my ass handed to me in seconds, and you could just tell he was king of the hill style, so he's just watching until the person he wants to go up against next is there, kicks my legs out underneath, and but yeah, how do you get into jiu-jitsu?
It's a funny story actually. So way back when, I've been a martial artist my whole life, and at one point I got it in my head for some reason. I was like, well, I want to learn. Like, I want to be very capable at self-defense. And I just I don't really care about competing or any of that stuff. I just want to be able to, like, if something bad goes wrong and I can't get out of it, I can't run, I can't talk about it, I want to at least have some options. Yeah. And so, so me being the huge nerd that I am, I started just kind of like studying everything. I was like, okay, well, it looks like I'm going to need to do some like striking, obviously, but I need to learn some takedowns and grapplings and stuff. So I started doing this style called Kaji Kembo, which is, I call it Hawaiian Krav Maga, and like all my friends who like know are gonna hate me, and like, I'm sorry guys, like, but it's basically that. It's like this. It's a self-defense style that was kind of just put together, by a bunch of guys who, same thing. They're like, fuck, we just don't want to get our asses kicked anymore. Yeah. And the guy that I was training with was a very, very capable jiu-jitsu guy, and so we would do grappling. It's one of those things. It's like you do it. You do a focused grappling class. You're like, wait, this is really fun. Like, I want to do more of this. Yeah. So it actually, so I started doing that, and then it actually turned out that I was like, well, I really like jiu-jitsu. I mean, I'm going to do this other thing, but I really like jiu-jitsu too. And so I started doing jiu-jitsu to kind of supplement this other style, but then it just turned into this thing that I think is really fun, especially like, as somebody who does like, movement practice, like, the way you move in jiu-jitsu is just this bizarre kind of amalgamation of like of standing work and groundwork and all this work somewhere in between. And
you see someone do it and you're like, oh, I could do that, and then you get in the position of it and you're like, I can't do it. Like, can you walk me through it?
Yeah, exactly. It's like at some point you're like, you're upside down, like, and kind of sort of off the ground, like you have like one leg somewhere and one arm somewhere, and you're like, huh. Well, this is not where I thought I would find myself when I woke up this morning.
For this.
Yeah, but that's like, but that's the cool thing about it, right? Is it like, you think about from a movement development. We were talking about body mapping earlier, like, being able to do stuff like that where you just have all these like crazy sensory inputs. Like, I think it's super healthy. Like, and I don't know, like, I think jiu-jitsu in general, and I've said this to a bunch of people. Like, I think us, where we live, we live in the Pacific Northwest, where it's very tech heavy. A lot of very, I'll just say this and piss people off. Like, a lot of people who I think spend way too much time in their heads, and don't realize that, like, there's a real connection between your body and your brain. You have to, so being in a situation where they both have to rely on each other, like jiu-jitsu, I think that's just good for everything. Like, because I mean, you've probably seen this, right? It's like you're having kind of a down day and you're a little foggy and you don't know what's going on. Then you go to jiu-jitsu and afterwards you're like, oh man, that problem that I was stuck on for like an hour, like, crap, I got it,
I say the same thing with weightlifting and training, it's people don't push themselves because they're in their heads, and that's what stops them from getting out of their heads, is that they're in their heads so far.
Exactly. And it's like, because it's funny, because like you think about, we talk about this all the time, and now that we're starting to learn more about how dependent, like, how big a role the central nervous system really plays to all this. It's like, well, yeah, and what does that attach to? Oh, your brain. So, and if you listen to like Rhonda Patrick's work, like she starts, she's been talking a lot in the last couple of years, on Marie's podcast on Found My Fitness about, how things like how permeable the blood-brain barrier really is, and there's all these things that go back and forth that we didn't think previously. So it's like, we're starting to like really, kind of quantify and qualify that idea that like your body and your mind really are physically, there's like a real world connection between your body and your mind. It's not just something that sounds cool for philosophy. So to me it's like, well, yeah, so why wouldn't you learn some kind of like physical skill that because even the term physical skill is kind of like misleading because it's really not. Like it's like the strong first guys say all the time, like strength is a skill, right? And it means it's like it's something that you have to practice, that you have to learn, that depends on being, you know, mentally and physically engaged. And I don't know, I think
you know, being in your head, I think of anxiety a lot. You know, a lot of people, especially in the Pacific Northwest, deal with anxiety. The majority of people deal with anxiety.
It's the rain, man.
But 80% of people don't have a physical, like something that works every time to get themselves out.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's that shift move, whether you're yelling out really loud, you know, journaling, but doing that shift move in jiu-jitsu training is really easy, so you can shift that nervous system into being in your body.
Yeah, and the cool thing about stuff like that is like, just doing it, like, you know, you don't have to. I mean, like, I travel a lot for work, so, you know, there's I mean, I haven't actually been to a class like in about a month. And I was at a workshop down in over in Detroit a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, I'm actually going down to Long Beach next weekend for another one. But, you know, even just doing it like a couple times a week with no thought of like, well, I want to compete or I want to be really just doing that movement, and, you know, the kind of engagement you have to have with other people. Like, I mean, I think that's usually, it's kind of like, you know, you hear people talk, and this is me just completely like theorizing about stuff, but, you know, you hear this idea that like, well, yeah, we need, as people, we need like contact with other people. Like, I agree with that. I don't think it necessarily means like, oh, we have to like get hugged all the time. Like, no, just go do jiu-jitsu, go do a contact sport, like just where you're actually like, you know, that level of engagement. I think that counts. I mean, at least for me, because like I'm a pretty solitary person. Like, I don't go out a lot anymore. Like, I don't hang out with people a lot, but like, just being able to do stuff like that is, I mean, I feel like it keeps me healthy. So
yeah, facts. No, that's a great point. And there's a brotherhood in the dojo. You know, it's you know, even being new, I was accepted into the brotherhood pretty quick, just because I was open to having conversations and open to getting my ass handed to me, and, you know, hey, you beat me, let's go again. 1 luck, 2 skill, baby. I'm like, I'm gonna get my butt kicked, but I'm gonna try.
But that's part of why you're here, right? And I think like, and I know there's like people are gonna say something like, yeah, well, what about, you know, this guy that was brought up on charges for, you know, for assault? It's like, yeah, that's everything. That's gonna happen. I don't mean to like minimize it, but I think the larger community is like that, and it's and I think that's any community. It's like think about, like, you know, I know people love to like talk shit about CrossFit, but look at what CrossFit did for like fitness communities. You know,
they brought intensity to workouts,
and they made it cool to like, let's all be in this space working out together, and they made it cool to like be kind of a group, and they made it cool to like, you know, sort of compete against each other. And I was like, yeah, we need that.
Yes,
like,
especially when we were getting soft. It's just the programming side of it, where we both, you know. I love the team atmosphere. I love the intensity. They've really shifted how people thought of intensity in workouts. It's not bodybuilding. No, you're sweating.
Yeah. It's like you're doing, and I know people are like, oh yeah, but people get hurt. It's like, well, yeah, okay, again, that's everything. You know, you're gonna have
people get hurt from bad coaching.
Yeah,
all
exactly.
the time.
Yeah, people get hurt walking upstairs. I mean, geez, you know. And again, I'm not trying to like minimize or downplay, but I think like, you know, if your whole goal is just to like cast negatives on stuff, it's like, well, yeah, you can do that with anything really easily. But
just find the good, you know, and take the good. You know, you don't have to do the same thing as CrossFit if you're opening at the gym, if that's your training style, but take what they do really well and learn other things that do really well.
Yeah, and you know, and it's funny because that goes back to like sort of what we were talking about earlier. We were talking about sales and marketing and business, and, you know, like, you know, even if you don't want to go like super hard into that part of like running your fitness business or whatever, I mean, there's systems out there from, you know, from other industries that are super, like, you know, I was talking to my coach about this, I'm a software salesman, like, as my day job, and there's so much stuff that in software, like software as a service sales, right, that like is applicable to fitness training. I mean, if you just drop the software and like look at the last part, like as a service, well, training's a service, right?
Yes.
So, you know, take like all these systems that have been put in place that have been vetted against multi-million-dollar companies and projects, and just take a few of those and like use them. You don't have to go deep, but, you know, just do enough that you understand, like, oh, that thing right there would work for what I'm trying to do. And I mean, it's the same with, you know, that's the same with everything. Like I said, you know, CrossFit does things good. SaaS sales does things good that, you know, you might need to. It's, you know, it's that whole idea of like we were saying at the beginning, you know, always being a white belt. You know, it's like, yeah, dude, it's just being open-minded. You know, being like where can you find opportunities? You know, where can you know, and sometimes they're going to be in unlikely places, but I think like the more that you're out there looking for.
Interesting. If we can just bring this up, because not everyone knows Seth per se and knows his background, right? But if you picked up something right there, he says he's in software sales, right? This guy is one of the, you know, just one of the smartest coaches you can have a conversation with. Breaks it down simply. Do you want to talk about how you got into fitness? just like that journey. Because I'm interested as well.
Oh man, that's oddly enough, that's a fun story. I actually like telling my Batman origin story, not like because out of anything narcissistic, but it's a fun story. So for me,
most interesting man in fitness and performance is Batman.
I'll try.
The Batman.
No, I grew up like a lot of kids. I grew up like playing all the pee-wee sports, and I had a very physical childhood, and so it was just stuff that I really learned that I like doing. And at one point, so I've been a martial artist my whole life. I started training martial arts when I was 6, and I've trained, way too many different styles, which is fine. But there's a style called capoeira, the Brazilian breakdance fighting, right? That I learned about, and it was one of those things that the first time I saw people do it, I was just like, oh my god, I have to learn how to do that. And so then I moved out to Seattle at some point, I think 95, 96. Then a couple of years later, I hooked up at school and started training. And at the time, I'd been through, the kind of the end of high school was sort of rough for me, and so I was not in a great spot. I'd put on a bunch of weight, and I hadn't been training a whole lot. And but here I was doing this thing that I just loved doing. And so one day, my master, my instructor, pulls me aside and says, "Look, man, I can tell you really love doing this, and that you really, and that, you could be really good, but you need to lose 20 pounds, or you're probably not ever going to be really good." And I was just like, fuck, all right, that's a wake-up call.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the position I was in was I think if you say something like that to a lot of people, and I'm not saying I'm some amazing enlightened person, what I'm saying is I think if you can get to a point where you find this thing that you want to do regardless, all the hard stuff goes away. Because I was like
the hard
okay.
truth behind it, because that's not an easy conversation to have. Yeah. Let alone most times you tell that to a kid, they're gonna say "fuck you" and walk off, right? They're like, okay, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That could be a very hurtful conversation.
Yeah, and you start to come up with all these rationalizations for why he's wrong. But but I was like, well, okay, here's a guy who's really good at this thing that I want to be really good at, and this is what he's saying. It's all right, cool, I'm gonna go do that. And but of course, I didn't really know what that meant. I had no background in fitness or other than, it's funny because when you're a kid and you're doing sports, you kind of sort of just do what you're told, and at least maybe some people do, but I didn't really think too much about it. I was just like, okay, yeah, this is my coach telling me to do something, I'll do it. Yeah. But
tells me to go around, I'm gonna say how far.
Right. Exactly.
He tells me to jump, how high.
Yeah, I'm not gonna think about well, how does this fit into my program? No. And because you don't really even know stuff like that. But I've always been a nerd, a comp sci guy, computers, all that. And so I went really deep. I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna start researching everything I can about nutrition and training and dieting. And the more I started to kind of dig into it, the more I was like, wow, this is really cool. It's actually not a whole lot different from writing code or solving a math problem, or because it's all just numbers. And
it's a problem. I mean, if we look at training as a problem to be solved, whether it's I'm trying to lose weight, how do I fix that problem? I'm trying to get stronger, how do I fix that problem? I'm trying to play my sport, it's it's a puzzle.
Yeah, it's like solving a puzzle.
Performance puzzle.
And so the more I got into it, the more I was like, well, okay, this is really cool. So I tried a bunch of different stuff. I tried a bunch of stuff on T Nation and other, and it's kind of cool because in all that, I kind of found all these folks, like John Berardi and Kevin Larrabee, and at the time there were way less people out there, but the people that were doing good stuff. And so I lost a bunch of weight, started training, and at some point I was working for a company down in California, and we had a corporate gym, so I'd be in the gym just lifting. And for me, by then, I was always lifting sessions were research sessions to me. They were it was like going into a lab.
Yeah.
So people would see me do stuff, and they were like, well, that looks really fun. That looks really I've never seen people train like that. What are you doing? And can you write programs for us? And so I started writing programs for people, and again, it's that whole idea of we were talking about this earlier. It's like putting a puzzle together. It's like all right, well, this guy wants this, and he can do this, and he has that. All right, so what do we do?
Yeah, and what does he need?
Yeah. And so that was a lot of fun, and this was probably about 12 years. This is 2006, I think. And so fast forward to, I guess, end of 2014. Same thing, not to get into TMI territory, but I'd been through a really rough year, bad relationships, all that stuff, bad breakups, all that good stuff. And it was kind of I think it was I like to say, it was the closest thing to a midlife crisis I think I've ever had, because I was like, man, I've been doing tech for almost 20 years now. I don't know if I want to do it for another 20 more years, but I like not being broke. So if I were going to have another career, what would I do?
It's one of the two reasons we get real on what you really want out of a situation. Right? That's true. It's like, I don't want to be broke.
Right. Yeah. And so, which is why I haven't gone fully into the fitness industry yet, but we can get to that. But, so I thought back to that, and I was like, I really enjoyed like writing programs for people and working with people. And, I'd still kept doing fitness, like, because, I was doing martial arts and jiu-jitsu and lifting, and I'd done some powerlifting. And so another thing about me, so I flunked out of college twice, which is really bizarre. I have no idea like how I got where I am because with that in mind. But I thought, well, why don't I like actually, since I have some time, I have a lot of disposable income, why don't I actually like get a fitness education and see where that takes me, And of course, I had no idea what that meant either. And so, like, it was actually...
no one does until you know.
Yeah, because I was like, well, I'm not going to go back to college, so what do I do? And it was almost like, kind of by accident that I ended up at, like, my very first On-It workshop. A really good friend of mine who actually lives out in Austin, who's another game industry software friend, he sent me one of their podcasts, and I think it was the one with Kelly Starrett. And so I started, like, just kind of binge watching all their podcasts. I was like, wow, it sounds like these guys know what they're talking about. And then I saw the podcast with John Wolfe, and he was talking about some specific things that resonated with me at the time. So I was like, all right. And it's funny because I didn't really know what On It was. Like, I'd seen kind of the Facebook ads, but I thought they were a clothing company.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. So I did a little more research. And then I was living down in the Bay at the time, but I was coming up to Seattle one weekend to DJ a show. And there happened to be an On It level 1 like workshop going on that same weekend down at Luca's gym.
Oh,
so I was like, well, it's this old gym.
First one,
yeah. Old gym, yeah. So I was like, well, I'll be in Seattle that weekend, so why not? Let's go see what that's all about. And so I went to it's called the level 1 back then. So I went to that. I was like, wow, this is really cool. John Wolfe's a beast. These guys are all really nice and they're really smart.
So nice, so smart, personable, and
we're both wearing On It gear, so like
represent, baby.
But so this is not an On It, I promise.
Team jerseys, actually.
Exactly. And so I was like, all right, this is cool. I like what these guys are talking about. And so I kind of went down that road, and it was cool because they're so well connected to other folks in the industry that I found out about all these other like streams, like FRC and like Box and Burn. And so basically I like the first couple of years, 2015, 2016, 2017, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like take all the courses I can and just see kind of what comes out. And then after I met I did durability, met Sarah Jameson, and realized like just looking at what she was doing, it's like, okay, this is the thing everybody needs. Like people need like this at the time it was like this movement stuff. I don't know what that means, but this is what everybody needs. And,
it's a linchpin.
Yeah, right. And so, it was one of those things that like I remember how it like affected me personally, like how it affected my training. I was like, all right, this is the thing I want to teach people, or I want to work with people on, or whatever that looks like. And so so I signed up with her. I've been mentoring under her for about 3 years now, and and that's a lot of it has just been kind of figuring out.
To me, that's a true fitness education. That's a true education. If you look at how people learned thousands of years ago, they found a mentor, someone that if you want to be apprenticeship. If you want to be a woodworker, you go work with the woodworker for years until you are. The Jiro makes sushi.
Oh yeah,
have you
seen
sushi?
It? Yeah, that's amazing.
His son has been working for him for 40 years making sushi, and he's probably one of the best sushi makers ever.
And he's still trying to improve his craft every day. Yeah. And, well, it's kind of like what you're doing. You're working with Krebs, and you've worked with Luca and all these people, and I agree. I think there's so many people out there who've been doing stuff for so long at such a high level, and have been really thoughtful about it. It's like take advantage of that.
It doesn't have to be the same way that you want to run your business. You're not copying them or copying your training style, but they're going to teach you stuff more than anyone else will. You're going to learn the ins and outs, and that's how you become better. Whatever you want to do, whether it's coaching, IT work, right? You've had other mentors to help take you through.
Yeah, and I'm not like, obviously I'm not done in like formal education, right? I think because there's definitely something to be said for like going and getting your exercise science degree, right? I mean, you're gonna get to deep dive into things like personally, like I'd love to have access to like a cadaver lab or something to see just like how movement kind of
that was the grossest stuff for me. I couldn't take the smell and all that.
Oh man.
But it's not, there's different ways to learn that, and there's parts of that 4-year degree that I would definitely say wasn't beneficial. I didn't need to know some stuff.
Sure.
But I use it, but I found other ways to learn it.
Sure. Yeah.
Biomechanics, anatomy's a staple for anyone trying to become a coach. That's number one, I would say.
Yeah, but I do agree with you. Like there are definitely other ways to learn it. And you know, I think, you know, we were talking about this earlier. I think that's something I would like to see more people do. Right? Is really get serious about, you know, kind of nerding out on this stuff. You know, like you know, we were talking about Andy Galpin earlier. That's something he says. He's like, yeah, I'd like to see more people who were not afraid of one end of the spectrum. Like if you put like practical application on one end of the spectrum and theory on the other. And he's like, right now it seems to me like there's all these folks who are very practical application focused, and there's all these folks who are very like academic focused, and there's this
middle.
Area in the middle. Yeah, there's so few people who are really doing, and maybe there are, maybe there aren't, maybe they're just not talking about it. But yeah, I think, you know, I'd like to see more people like kind of do that too, because for me, you know, anytime I go to a course, like for example, FRC is a great example. You know, the first time I went to FRC, you know, Spina would like throw out these books every so often, and every time he threw out a book, I was like, all right,
write it down.
Yeah. And so when I left FRC, it's like, oh no,
we're good.
so when I left FRC, like I had a giant read, and I read every one of those books, and
the difference. And
it was like, you like you said, yeah, you don't need to know all of it, and yeah, I remember maybe 25% of all the stuff I read, but the things I remember were things that I was just like, yes, that's a thing that I know I'm going to need to know.
It's a universal truth.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you were saying, reps on confidence. Like, yeah, you got to put in those reps on your education, too. But again, the cool thing is, like, nowadays, you know, I tell people this all the time. There's so many options. Go to a course. I know people love to kind of down on weekend certification courses, and like, no, I think they're useful because there's
best thing you can do.
There's so many good ones out there. Like, yeah, but the flip side is, yeah, now once you've been to that weekend course, you do have to
use it.
Yeah. Whether it's just on yourself or on your clients.
It's how you learn. I mean, the learning, like we mentioned, is doing. It's the application process as well. You know, you can take all the information you want, but if you're not applying it in your own training and other ways. So speaking of application, with that big background of different training modalities and systems, because like you've covered every single system, whether it's now at this point like barbell work, kettlebell work, FRC, boxing, jiu-jitsu, all these. What does your training look like now? How do you apply all those systems?
That's a good question. It's funny because I'm actually about to like go finish up an animal floor workshop too when we're done here.
Yeah. It's time. We can walk in.
Yeah. Over there.
Walking podcast.
Yeah, that's cool. But well, so yeah, you know, I'm like a huge fan of John Russin's programs. You know, FHT, FPT. So I did a couple rounds of FHT. I've been reading FPT, and kind of what I've been doing though, since I don't have a consistent training schedule right now, is I'm just kind of like using the tenets that he teaches in his books, and then, you know, I've been through his seminar and his cert 4 or 5 times now. So basically, I would say it's like my bad poor interpretation of John Russin's programming. So I do a lot of like, you know, a lot of like you know, like I use the 6-phase warm up for everything, so I think that's awesome.
Yes.
And then I do some BFR work, obviously. I mean, yeah, you know, everybody.
Look at those guns! Yeah.
I'm always posting pictures on my Instagram of like my post BFR pumps. I know it's gross, but yeah, you know, but you know, basics, I guess, is what it comes down to. You know, so I do squats and I do deadlifts and but not even that, I do squats and hinges and presses and horizontal presses, and like it's funny too because like one of the things that I've been kind of trying to blow my own mind with recently is, you know, he talks about that ratio of pressing to pulling. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go in today. I'm just gonna try and nail that, like, you know, 3-to-1, 2-to-1 ratio, and it becomes a game, right?
Oh yeah.
So
especially with programming, when you know those, it's different.
So short answer is, you know, and then, you know, I try to do jiu-jitsu as much as I can. You know, like if I'm on the road, I try and find a gym, or if I'm in town, I try and like get to a class. But yeah, you know, I like to. I'm just trying to have fun with it. You know, like trying to lean out, like get my skills up, stay in the gym, all that good stuff. So yeah.
I love it. Well, we are about to have to go here. We're going to talk more and more. Seth is one of the most knowledgeable guys, one of the nicest guys in fitness performance.
I try.
I know you have some cool stuff coming up. Do you want to just say how people can reach out, learn more about what you're doing?
I'm pretty much just Coach Seth Gibson everywhere. So if you Google or Linktree or whatever Coach Seth Gibson, you'll probably find me. So yeah.
Sweet. He has some awesome giveaways coming up. Awesome products coming out, so check it out.
Especially if you're a BJJ player or a grappler or a wrestler or a martial artist or a dancer. I speak to you. You're my people, so I'm taking care of you guys. So,
Perfect. Anything else you want to say before we?
Not much. Thanks, man. I'm glad we got to have this chat. I always love talking to you, and like I said, looking forward to having you on my podcast. So
I can't wait. I can't wait. Like I said, Seth is just one of the nicest guys. I'm so glad I got to meet him, and I met him through all our continuing eds. So,
get out
it's
there
a testament to it. Yeah.
Get out to courses. Get out of your own gym. Go talk to people. It's awesome.
Perfect.
Yep.
Peace
Cheers.
out.